So in my last video, I talked about James Harden's perspective and if he's going to help the 76ers accomplish their goal to win a championship. But in today's video, we're going to talk about Ben Simmons' perspective and what his future holds with the Brooklyn Nets this year and beyond. Because I personally believe that this is the right situation for Ben Simmons to flourish, and we might see the best version of Ben Simmons that we have ever seen. Because when it comes to Ben Simmons, he is in a perfect situation, and honestly, this is really his last shot in my opinion. And I'm not talking about last shot to be a good player, because he's always going to be a good player, an effective player. Because all the excuses really go out the window when you look at how this team is constructed around him. Because as I said, there are no excuses, and we're going to talk about it later on in this video. But before we go any further, if you are not subscribed, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button and press that bell for post notifications, so that way you're notified every time I drop another banger on this channel. And speaking of video, if you enjoyed this one, don't forget to drop a like on it. But now that we're done with the plugs, let's talk about Ben Simmons' fit on the Brooklyn Nets. Now for starters, when you look at the Nets' needs, one of the biggest needs was defense. Now earlier on in the season, they were actually a really solid defense, being top 10 in defensive rating and opponents' points per game. But I ain't gonna cap, I always knew that was a fake defense, because let's keep it real, the Nets don't have a collection of amazing defenders, they were just playing great team defense. And look, it's not like playing great team defense isn't sustainable, but with the players on that roster, I just knew it was a matter of time before it started to crumble, especially if they brought back Kyrie Irving. And another thing is that they couldn't beat any good teams. Anytime they faced a team like the Bulls or the Warriors or anybody that's just worthy to give a damn about, those teams would put up over 110 points on their asses every single time. So I knew eventually that defense was going to collapse, and it did, as right now they are 19th in opponents' points per game and defensive rating. Now obviously things did contribute to that. They lost Kevin Durant, James Harden missed time even though he's been mostly a negative defender, but he's solid in the post. And the addition of Kyrie Irving did them no favors, as he's a bad defender as well. So when you're having to rely on guys like LaMarcus Aldridge and Patty Mills to play defense, it's no wonder that their defense is going to fall off of a cliff. So adding Ben Simmons to the mix is definitely going to help them on that side of the ball, because he's not only a good defender, but he's arguably the best defender in the league. Simmons can legit guard 1 through 5 and do it at an elite level. Maybe not guarding the 5 position, but he can more than hold his own against some centers in the NBA, and they can go small due to that versatility on defense. And though they do lack some point of attack defenders, I think having him and Kevin Durant in the paint as the front court is going to do wonders for them on both sides of the ball, because defensively that kind of length in your front court is a huge advantage. Ben Simmons is an amazing point of attack defender, can switch, go over screens, do all of the fun stuff, and Kevin Durant's gonna be there to play amazing help defense, which he's best at. It's somewhat similar to the Jared Allen and Evan Mobley duo. So I think just adding Ben Simmons to the mix can make the Nets one of the better defenses in the NBA, because of how he fits well with Kevin Durant on that side of the ball. And as shown in Cleveland, if you have that kind of duo in the front court, it can do crazy wonders for any defense. And then when you move on to the offensive side of the ball, I'm not going to say it's a perfect situation for the Nets, because there are still some obvious flaws in Ben Simmons' game, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But as far as what applies to Ben Simmons, this is an amazing circumstance for him, because on a team that features Kyrie Irving, it looks like Kyrie is going to be the main primary ball handler, and Ben Simmons doesn't always have to be the point guard pushing the pace. He has shot creators around him in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and also what's around him are shooters everywhere. For starters, people forget that they already had Joe Harris, who's one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA. I know he had a really bad series against the Bucks, but outside of that series, the man is still cash money at the three-point line. So imagine the list of shooters on that team once Joe Harris comes back, because they just traded for Seth Curry, who's also one of the greatest shooters not only in the league today, but of all time. So removing Steph Curry from the equation, you have the two best shooters arguably in the NBA today on the same team next to Ben Simmons, along with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, two guys that can not only shoot off the dribble but off the ball as well, whether in spot ups, catch and shoots, whatever the situation is, they can do that also with the best of them. And we all know, because Ben Simmons does not take jump shots, he doesn't even have to do that here, because he has shooters around him that can do that for him. And even despite his limitations, he's going to have value offensively, especially on a team like this. He's a great transition player, whether it comes to finishing at the rim or driving kick situations. He's going to be very useful in transition to push the pace of the team, and we all know he's one of the best passers in the league, which I think can be very useful in the half court, especially alongside the shooters and shot creators in Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant that they have on the roster. I could see some two-man game with him and Kyrie that can be very effective, though I do believe in the half court he's limited. He can still be useful because he can still set screens, be a roll man, a lob threat, cut to the basket, slash. He can really do it all off the ball outside of spotting up, and though that might not have been enough in Philadelphia, in Brooklyn that's more than enough for his role. Now I do say all of that and understand that there are still flaws with Ben Simmons, because though this is a perfect situation for him, it's not a perfect situation for the Nets, because I think people are overlooking the flaws in Ben Simmons' game. For starters, he did have shooters in Philadelphia. He played with the JJ Redick, he played with Seth Curry, and hell, even Joel Embiid is one of the best stretch fives in the NBA. So when it comes down to shooters, he's had them before in the past and has failed. And we're not only talking about basic fails where you're inefficient or something, we're talking about fails that are of cataclysmic proportions. Scoring 1 point against the Boston Celtics or against the Atlanta Hawks, passing out of a layup on Trae Young at the end of the game. Simmons has failed in epic fashion, but the most recent one has to be the most alarming one with Ben Simmons, and it's the fact that at the end of games, especially against Atlanta, he was unplayable, not because of his passing or his ability to finish at the rim or his transition game or his defense, but because he could not make free throws. And we're not talking about a Shaq level of free throw percentage or Giannis level of free throw percentage. At least those guys could split their free throws for the most part, but we're talking about a guy that shot below 40% from the free throw line. Actually, if you want me to be specific, I didn't want to embarrass the dude, but he shot 34% to be exact. 34%. That means every time he took a trip to the free throw line, he was more likely to miss them both than to at least make one. Now, I will say this and give Simmons some sort of leeway here. He's never shot that bad from the free throw line, to his credit. But it's clear that when you're missing free throws like that, it is a mental thing. So whatever was going on with him last year in the playoffs, let's just hope it doesn't carry over to the Nets this year. But do you really want to take that risk? Like, honestly, do you really want to bet on somebody like Ben Simmons to be able to deliver for you in the fourth quarter like that? Because no matter what value you think Ben Simmons brings to your team, if he can't touch the ball in the fourth quarters, that makes him completely ineffective, at least offensively, because if you saw that series against the Hawks, it wasn't like he was doing anything else. He didn't have no effort off the ball. He wasn't cutting, he wasn't boxing out, spotting up, he wasn't a threat on the perimeter. I mean, Gallinari was just guarding him with one hand on his shoulder. And I get that Simmons does other things for you and you have other guys that can shoulder the fourth quarter responsibilities, but just having somebody like that on the court is still a huge liability for your team in offense, because though Simmons has potential to do things off the ball, especially in this current situation, he's yet to show that he can consistently do that. And unlike Philadelphia, who had defenders on the roster like Thibault and Joel Embiid, the Nets are going to lose tremendously with him off the court. And don't forget, like I said earlier, it is a mental thing when it comes to Ben Simmons. And if it is, then there is one circumstance that the Nets don't want to face with Ben Simmons on the team, and that's a series against the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, just imagine the environment of the arena if Ben Simmons was at the free throw line. I honestly think we're going to get the loudest cheers in mankind history once he misses his first free throw. But before I wrap up this video, I want to say one thing about Ben Simmons. There's not very many situations that I can point to in the NBA that are better than this. And considering how you left Philadelphia, you can't fail in this city. You stood on your ground, and I give you credit for that, because it does take a lot of balls to lose money the way he did to stand on what you believe. But now it's time for you to put your money where your mouth is and actually prove to the Sixers why they gave up on the wrong one. And trust me, I am rooting for Ben Simmons. I really want him to succeed in Brooklyn. A couple of years ago, I was very high on him. I thought if you built a team perfectly around him with shooters and you let him just run the offense, he could have a similar production output to that of Giannis. And though I have gone away from that idea a long time ago, I still believe that Ben Simmons can be an all-NBA, all-defensive team, defensive player of the year caliber player on this Nets roster. And mind you, throughout this entire video, I have not mentioned a single thing about him needing to get a jump shot, because that's not required on this team. And if you notice, that means we are lowering the bar for Ben Simmons. And once you do that for NBA players, especially for somebody of Ben Simmons' stature that was the first overall pick in his draft class, the moment you start to fail to consistently reach lowered expectations is really where the true slander starts about your ability as a basketball player. So Simmons, if you think that this is bad, what's happened so far in your career, just imagine what's going to happen if you fail in Brooklyn in addition to your past failure in Philadelphia. The ball is in your court, Ben, and I just pray you make the right decisions with it. But that concludes this video. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the channel. Press that bell for post notifications, and do not forget to follow me on social media. The links are down below in the description box. This is your boy Young Mustard signing out. Y'all stay safe and have a blessed day. Peace.